In this service video, we will demonstrate how to properly clean a water solenoid valve. It's used in a variety of different units manufactured by Antunes, a variety of different steamers. The location will vary. However, cleaning the water solenoid valve is identical regardless of which model you will be servicing. In this case, the solenoid valve has been removed for a close lookup, but again, you do not need to physically remove the valve to clean it. The main reason you would want to remove and clean the water solenoid valve is because your hot plate is flooding overnight. So you come in the morning and there's water down at the bottom, or it's flooding throughout the day. The first step to confirm if it is your water solenoid valve is to turn the power off, disconnect the water line from the back, unplug the power cord, and access the top of the steamer plate. In this case, we'll be demonstrating a Miracle Steamer MS series. Your model number may differ, but the approach is the same. Remove the wing nut, the lid, secondary lid, and notice we have trace of water inside. We do not know why or how the water showed up there. So the first thing is to dry up the water with some napkins. Okay. Once the hot plate is completely dry of water, we're going to reconnect the water line only to the machine. No power, just the water line. Push the water line in. As you can see, water starts to trickle non-stop into this racetrack area. That is a confirmation that the solenoid valve is bleeding through. It's seeping water through, most likely because of debris has contaminated the inside of the solenoid valve, and that's what we need to do to disassemble it, remove the debris, so that we can prevent this leak through. In this case, the solenoid valve has been removed for a closer visual. There is the lock nut on top that helps support the coil in the bracket. Then we have this stem, which half of it is hollow and the top half is solid. Once you loosen this from the body, it will incorporate a plunger with a spring and a rubber seal. As you can see, the stem, it's hollow so that the plunger can move up and down freely, and on the top side it's solid. And inside you would have the body of the solenoid valve. It's got 3 holes. The center hole is your outlet, and the 2 adjacent holes is your inlet. These solenoid valves are directional, which means if they are not installed correctly, they will leak through. There will be an out stamped on one side of the valve and in stamped on the other side. Water flows in from the source and flows out to the steamer. So here again, a close-up. We have the solenoid valve coil support bracket. We have the solenoid valve coil, the lock nut, the stem, the plunger with spring and rubber seat. We have the body of the solenoid valve, and inside the body there will be an O-ring. And on some stems there will be a light rubber seal, which is there to help dampen the vibration noise that the solenoid valve would make upon being energized. Typically what happens is debris, usually small copper shavings, water filter cartridge debris, gets embedded in this rubber seal, and when the plunger springs down to close the center hole, the debris that it captures prevents the plunger from sealing correctly. Therefore, water pressure begins to push through and continuously bleed by the valve gradually and flood the hot plate. So the objective is to disassemble the valve in place to clean the body and the plunger of any foreign debris. The following tools will facilitate the solenoid valve water valve cleaning: channel locks, crescent wrench, screwdriver, Phillips, and the most important tool of all is locking vice grips. This is a must. Next, turn the power switch off. Disconnect the water line from the back by pushing down on the quick release lever and extract the water line connection and unplug the power cord from the power source. Next, take a crescent wrench and loosen the top nut, lefty-loosey. Once you break it loose, remove the nut and then slide the coil and the bracket completely off the stem and set aside. Next, you're going to see the vertical stem here. You're going to notice a groove right in the center. Anything below the groove, this stem is hollow. Anything above the groove, the stem is solid. You could place a screwdriver on the top of the stem, but we do not recommend that because you're not able to use enough torque leverage to break it loose. This is where your locking vice grips will come in handy. You're going to clamp them above the groove, not down here. You have to be close to the top, slightly below the threads, and above the groove. If you clamp it down here, you're going to squeeze and pinch the stem, and the valve is destroyed. Now you need to replace it. So you're going to clamp it on top, adjust it so that it bites down firmly. Then take some channel locks and support the body to avoid bending of the piping. You're going to secure the body with channel locks, and you're going to rotate the vice grips counterclockwise, lefty-loosey, just to break it loose. That's all it takes. Once you break it loose, remove the locking vice grips and unscrew the stem. Now there will be some residual water that may come out, so have a napkin nearby. The first step is to inspect inside the body near the 3 holes for any debris. Keep in mind, sometimes the debris is so minute that during the assembly process or disassembly of the solenoid valve, it's going to fall out during the unscrewing of the stem from the body. Just take a clean cloth towel, paper towel preferably, and clean inside the hole. Make sure that the O-ring is seated in place. Sometimes the O-ring gets stuck to the bottom of the stem, and when you remove it, you will not see an O-ring here. Make sure the O-ring goes into the body. Once you have cleaned the body, then the next is to focus on the plunger, and same thing, wipe the plunger, and typically you will notice debris somewhere around the center of the rubber plunger. Could be a small speck of copper shaving, just tiny little specks of debris. When you wipe it, there's a good chance you're not going to see anything. However, the next step you want to do is buff it. And what I mean buff it, you're going to take the plunger and we're going to try to smooth some of the imperfections here. Just take a flat surface, preferably stainless steel, and just rub it back and forth. We're going to use this edge here. Rub it back and forth. What we're trying to do is buff out the rubber, because in some cases when the debris gets trapped in the rubber seal, it creates little indentations in the rubber. If that's the case, the water can bleed by those indentations. So once you remove the debris, whether you find the debris or not, buff out the rubber plunger. And it does not have to be super perfect. It's okay to have a small little circle indented inside. You just do not want any creases in the rubber plunger area. If the rubber plunger is cut, like sliced, it's not salvageable. You must replace the solenoid valve in that situation. Once you have cleaned the plunger, now it's time to reassemble. This is how it looks disassembled in another Antunes steamer. Here's your coil, coil bracket, plunger with stem, and lock nut. As you can see, you can disassemble it in place. And we have another unit here showing a different position. Solenoid coil, bracket, plunger and stem, lock nut. You have easy access to clean the body on these other various units. During reassembly, make sure the black O-ring is seated inside the body. Inspect it once again for any foreign debris. Take your plunger, make sure the spring is installed, and you're going to put the non-rubber end into the stem. Massage it to ensure that it moves up and down freely. Then you're going to take the stem and manually thread it into the body until hand tight. Once it's hand tight, you're going to take your lock and vice grips and you're going to attach it to the top half, which is above the groove. Again, do not go below the groove. Okay. Secure the body with some channel locks, and you don't have to over tighten it. You're just going to snug it up. You'll feel it get snug, and that's it. You stop at that point. Reinstall the solenoid valve coil with the bracket. Make sure it's fully seated. Reinstall the lock nut until hand tight. And just snug it up with the crescent wrench. It does not have to be super tight, just snug. Next, reconnect the water line to the back of the steamer. This would now bring water pressure to the inlet side of the solenoid valve. If the solenoid valve cleaning worked, water should no longer push through. Verify there is no seepage or water leaks near or around the body of the valve. If there is, it's a good chance that the O-ring in the body is not seated correctly or is missing. If you do not notice any seepage externally on the valve, go to the hot plate. In this case, on this particular steamer, the hot plate is on top. As you can see, the water flow would flow through these two tubes. And if it's bleeding through the valve, the water pressure is going to seep water continuously onto this hot plate area. As you can see, there is no seepage, which means this water valve cleaning was an effective solution. Once you have confirmed there is no seepage in or around the body of the solenoid water valve and no seepage observed going onto the hot plate, then you may reinstall the accessories, side cover, plug the power cord in, turn the power switch on, test the unit for operation, and return to service.